Scotty Brand Muffins will be joining the program today. Scott Bentley, the host of Locked on Tigers, friend of the program, friend in life in general as well. I love Scott dearly. He's the man. Looking forward to breaking down this most recent time of Tiger baseball. It's deadline week, and the Tigers are buyers. I used to pray for times like these, so we're going to have him on. We're going to jump right to the interview here in just a second because when I get rolling with Scott, I forget that I'm doing an interview show sometimes and we're just talking. So it'll be a lot of fun for you guys to listen to. But before we get to that, if you're watching on YouTube, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. We are available in audio form on Apple Podcasts. We are available in audio form on Spotify. And you can find us on Twitter at Castellani2014. We're on TikTok as well. And CastellaniContent.com is getting updated every single day with the content that Austin and I create. We keep it rolling, and we have been. Whether it's I'll Say This episodes, Chris Company episodes, Tiger postgame videos, the train never stops. It's a great time of year for yours truly. All right, this is a bit of a longer interview, but I mean that in the best way possible. Let's jump right into it. Here is our interview. Breaking down the Detroit Tigers with Scott Bentley. In order to explain what Scotty H is thinking, we have to have Scotty B on the pod to break it all down. Scott Bentley, we've had him on here before, literal friend of the program, known you a long time, and happy to have you on again. Scotty B, what's going on? How are you dealing with what's been I'm not going to say uncertain necessarily, but an interesting time for Detroit Tiger baseball?
Yeah, well, first off, happy to be here. Doing well, brother. Good to see and talk to you always. Honestly, I think I know you can attest to this too. Like, the fan base just becomes more hostile towards everybody when they're losing, right? Like, it's not my fault, dude. Like, I'm not out there. You know what I mean? I'm not out there giving up 5 runs a game and striking out at a 40% clip. Like, it ain't me. But I think that's kind of the biggest thing to navigate. And like, that doesn't matter to anybody except myself. I understand that, but it's just you really do see how hostile kind of everybody is and how on edge everybody gets when the Tigers are losing games. So the last 2 games have been a nice change of pace there.
I wasn't planning on doing this, but let's do a quick Detroit Tiger Twitter bingo. And I'm going to bring up a topic of a tweet that I've gotten, and I want to see if you've gotten it as well in the last 2 weeks.
Okay. Word.
Riley Greene needs to be sent down.
Yeah. Multiple.
Yeah. AJ Hinch fired.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Couple.
Yeah, I've gotten that one. Trade Skubal now.
Yeah, oh, that's more than anything else you've said so far. Yeah. That falls in line with B sellers at the deadline. Sure. Because that's Have you gotten a trade Glaber tweet? I've only gotten one, but that was a recent one. I don't think I actually have. I've gotten plenty of sell, and if he's on a 1-year deal, if you're selling, obviously you would end up trading him. But I don't think I've gotten him by name. No, mostly it's just, seriously, I've gotten more Skubal comments on episodes than anything else lately, for sure.
Yeah, and it is such a weird thing just because they were playing so bad for 2 weeks and I think they're close to out of it with the way that things have gone, knock on wood, obviously. And I guess that's kind of where we'll jump into it because we are around trade deadline time here. And I guess I did a whole segment about this on my other show, which was, the way I stand on this team. I think for so much of the first half, there were these moments where we started to wonder, man, the ball is just bouncing our way almost an insane number of times. And you kind of started to wonder, is this a team that can potentially be the last team standing? You then are met with, just the kind of the ultimate gut punch that was the last 2 weeks. And my take has been what this team is prior to the deadline, at least smack dab between what they were for the first 90 games and what they've been over the last 2 weeks or so. Right now, and it's a tough question to ask because it could change in 2 days. Right now, what do you view the ceiling of this team as being?
Well, I mean, it's really hard for me not to say like the ceiling, like we saw the ceiling. I don't think it's too much higher than, 20 games over 500 and comfortably in first place. I think I tend to agree with you that they are probably not as good talent-wise of a roster as they were for most of the first half, but they also, for as much as there was a big reaction from everybody, us included, on during the losing skid, like they are not that bad either. Like they have too much talent to be the one of the worst teams, like worse than the Pirates. They're not.
Right.
So I think that it probably is somewhere in the middle. I also think that, and I know we're probably going to talk about the trade deadline. It doesn't. This is going to sound maybe overly dramatic or not. I don't know. Like people might disagree with this. I'm not even sure it really matters. Like you are where your feet stand, right? You are 9 games above the next closest team in the division with 2 months of the season left. That's the situation. So you gotta play to where your feet are. And your feet right now are you should be buying, because the whole point of all of this is to win at the major league level. And right now you are in a position that you have not been in over a decade, which is a massive lead in your division at the trade deadline. So, I mean, what their true ceiling is, I don't think this team is, even close to as talented as, the Dodgers of the world, obviously, and honestly, you can like pick a few teams in the National League. The American League is kind of wide open, which is another reason, as again, like where your feet stand is what you have to, accommodate for. And you have no competition in the division. The American League is a shit show. This is, your time is now. Oh, and on top of that, and then I'll stop talking, I promise.
No, you're good.
Tarik Skubal only guaranteed for another year and a half.
Yeah.
Whether you think he's going to be extended, whether you think he's not, I don't really care. The only guarantee is that if you want it, you have him for the next year and a half. So all of those factors, I don't really care what the ceiling is. You have to go for it. And I'm not saying, like trade McGonagall, but like you have to add pieces and go for it when the opportunity presents itself. And it has presented itself in spades.
It's weird how the championship window became the Tarik Skubal window, because I still maintain, and I don't think it's a discussion that fans really want to have yet, and I understand. There is likely, not going to say definite, but likely going to be life beyond Tarik Skubal at some point. I will. I mean, it's just, and I will ask you about that at some point as we get kind of deeper into this episode. But, I think that there's this percentage of people who view when Tarik leaves, the window closes. I mean, I think from an organizational standpoint, that's kind of when they believe the window is opening. I mean, that's going to be hopefully when, Clark and Briseño and McGonagall are kind of, reaching their peak potentially at the big league level. And I am going to ask a ton about the deadline because it's mainly what people want to know about, but you made a slight reference to him earlier, and that's to Riley Greene, who is having a fine season. In fact, it's a testament to how good he was, the fact that the guy's been on vacation for a month and still has like really good numbers. Look, I think that when you look at what Riley's accomplished, it's safe to say, now this isn't necessarily a high bar, probably the most talented position player they've developed in, probably in my lifetime. If you want, you could say, a few years at Granderson, we could, pick and choose. But I think generally speaking, this is a guy drafted top 5. At his peak, he's looked like a top 10 offensive player in baseball. The problem is we've also seen the valleys, which has been the last month of the season. And I got the baseball reference page open right here. Last 21 games, he's batting 163. He's only drawn 4 walks. He's struck out 38 times. And which is, that's a large enough sample size for it to be pretty concerning. He still leads the league in strikeouts. I guess with him only being 24, it kind of creates this weird conundrum because he's still, by definition, a very young player, but it's his 4th year in the league. Like this is kind of the time where players of his caliber start to figure out what kind of player they're going to be for the prime of their careers. Who do you think Riley Greene truly is as a player? Is he going to remain this high strikeout, high slug offensive player that they've had for a majority of this season, or do you see Water finding its level in regards to his consistency and his inability to make contact, fairly often at this point, with the strikeout rate being what it is?
Yeah, man, it's my take on this is, it would be one thing if he was chasing all the time and it was like, oh, when the ball's in the zone, he does damage, but he just like chases a lot. It's not even really that. Like, not that his chase rate is great, but like he is missing in the zone at an astronomical rate in the month of July. And like, I mean, if you have his month to months up, like April isn't pretty either, right? Like, this isn't even the first time this year that he's gone through a mega slump. He went through like, what was it, like 1 for 40 or whatever the hell it was in the middle of April. So I don't know, man. I think that serious might even be too dramatic. I do think that some mechanical changes probably need to be made for him to be more consistent. He just has such an uppercut swing. It is one of the most violent uppercut swings in all of baseball. Like, we have that data now, to the public with, not only bat speed, but we also, have like bat path and launch angle, obviously, and et cetera, et cetera. Like, he has a violent uppercut. And when he is on, and he said it himself, like, he knows that if he pretty much just makes contact, it's going to find the barrel because of the way his swing is shaped. And that's great when you're making consistent contact. It does not account for how rarely he is making contact at the present moment. So I think that the answer probably is, if he just continues business as usual like this and doesn't make any changes, that he's going to keep being this. The guy that is Barry Bonds for a month and a half and then is, wow, there's a lot of names you could choose there. Not a very good hitter. For a month that followed up as well. And I think that ideally you want him to, I mean, this is Captain Obvious statement, you want him to cut the whiff rate and cut the K rate a little bit. He even went through stretches where he wasn't walking. And like, that's last year, I didn't care about the strikeout rate because when he did hit the ball, he had a lot of pop and he had a walk rate of 11%. That has not translated to this season because he can't work any counts because he swings and misses at literally everything. So it's, I think a change needs to be made. Do I know, what exactly the future holds when he makes or if he makes that change? No, but I think that it is hard to justify with a straight face saying like this, copy and paste this exact approach and swing going forward.
I would agree. And just look, for the sake of fairness, in June, the guy hit 360, like slugged 630, OPS over 1,000. Like, he was like Aaron Judge, Cal Raleigh, Shohei Ohtani good for that stretch of the season, meaning, that would indicate he'll probably get hot again. I mean, you mentioned his swing. I think that generally speaking, and I just say this as from a visual standpoint, from an eye test standpoint, I view it. I've always viewed it to be kind of an ugly swing. I mean, it's just or at the very least, it's not particular. It's not conventional in a lot of ways.
Young Bellinger. You remember Young Belly, how you just if you threw a fastball up, it was just an automatic swing and miss because of his big loopy, kind of swing. It kind of reminds me of that.
And that kind of scares me a bit because Bellinger, while he's found it now, went through literally a almost 3 year stretch where he completely lost himself, and so much of it was swing mechanics and timing and figuring things out. And I don't think Riley goes into that much of a downward trend, but I think that there is some definite concern going forward. And I'm glad you bring up the walk rate, just because we make such a big deal out of strikeouts, and I'm one of those people who's like, I don't want guys striking out ideally, but there's a lot of the guy that I always, Kyle Schwarber, right, high on base, swings and misses all the time. I'm scared to death when that guy comes to the plate. He's having a career year. If the walk rate was higher, and currently his on base stands at 320, which is, that's by the standards of a player of Riley Greene's caliber, that's bad. And so I think that's where there needs to be some adjustment. I want to talk about a few pitchers here. And I wasn't planning on starting with this until the guy went out and shoved last night. But, one of the bigger starts of the season, Troy Melton last night comes out 7 scoreless against the Diamondbacks. Unbelievable start. I mean, I think that, not all of those outings are created equal. And in this particular case, it wasn't just the results as much as I felt like the pitch data and the pitch mix in general was really good. I mean, that's a live arm with an upper 90s fastball. He had legit swing and miss, pretty much in command all night. Look, it's obviously one start, but with the news that came out yesterday with Reese Olsson, which we will discuss, Melton's a piece now. Like, I don't see him, and I even saw this being speculated. I don't think he's a trade piece now. Like, I don't think you can count on that with Reese being out. I don't think you can plan on trying to get somebody. You need the pitching, you need the reps at this point. What is your current assessment of Troy Melton after that outing? Do you view him as a guy who will be a long-term piece here, pending health, or do you feel like that one dynamite start may have just been more of an outlier than anything else?
I fucking love Troy Melton.
Okay,
pardon my French.
No, go ahead, man.
I absolutely love him. So the reason why is because of floor, and I am a very big, like, I don't like player comps and terms like, oh, this guy is, going to be exactly, because no one ever picks bad players. But I really like ceilings and floors is always how I've loved to analyze players. The reason why I love Melton is because even if the stuff doesn't play on a consistent basis as a starter, even if he can't maintain this going into the 6th or 7th inning, even if he isn't efficient and, walks some hitters so he can't go deep into games, at a minimum, you added a guy that can throw 100 into your bullpen. That is worst case scenario. The worst he will be is the guy who throws 100. He's a starter, and he has the 2nd highest velo on the team, only behind Skubal. This bullpen is allergic to velocity, dude. Yeah. Allergic. They literally get rashes. Like, if anyone throws over 96 miles an hour, they start sneezing. Like, it is mind-boggling that this analytically heavy, front office, the Rockies have a guy that throws 100, dude. Like, everybody does. And this team fucking doesn't, for whatever reason. So, like, I love him just for the sheer fact that even if it doesn't work out as a starter, which they should try to make it work out as a starter, don't get me wrong, but even if it doesn't, at a minimum, we now have a flamethrower in the bullpen, and it's about damn time, because they haven't had like a legitimate one of those since Joel Zumaya. So, Gregory Soto, I guess, but we don't have to go down that.
Kind of counts, yeah.
I think, but I really do think that they not only should try him as a starter, but it is because it's like advantageous of them too. It's far more value if he does stick as a starter. But I think he can, and I think the reason why is not only because of the fact that we saw 99 in the 5th inning or the 6th inning, but because that slider was legitimately good. We didn't even see him use the splitter in that out. Yeah. Like, he has more pitches, dude. Like, people, are freaking out over the high velo, and the slider was really good. The backdoor cutter to lefties was a called strike machine. Like, he had all this stuff going for him. He threw like 4 splitters in the entire outing, and that is he doesn't throw a changeup. He just throws that, and that is also a pitch that he found some success with. So I love him. I think he has a starter repertoire. I think he has the velocity. When he was in the minors, I really thought his route long-term was the bullpen. I'm not going to completely flip because of 2 outings, but at the same time, I mean, certainly with Olsson out, there's no doubt I would rather see him every 5th day than Montero or Long or Enns, et cetera, whoever the heck else has been in that revolving door of starting pitchers.
Yeah, my overreaction to one great start is keep him in the 5-man and give Montero some legit reps in the pen, just because I think that the issue, and I even called this, I think after his first career start, even though I do still like the guy, is I think Montero's biggest issue is just the lack of an out pitch, and the inability to finish guys off. And we've seen so many instances of starters going to the pen, finding that second pitch, kind of limiting their pitch repertoire. It's now 2 pitches as opposed to 4 or 5. And I could see him developing because you feel like the pitchability is there. Whereas with Melton, like you saw him, more pitches on that game on Monday than he's thrown all season, and yet you felt like he seemed pretty seasoned with the stuff that he was featuring. And you mentioned the bullpen, and I've been trying to wrap my head around what's happened necessarily, because my whole theory, and I think you'll generally agree with this, is that bullpens are just like the most fragile like piece and unit in sports, and that there's very little correlation between what a bullpen is in 1 year versus the next season. I mean, I always use this example, but there were those few years there where the Indians at the time just had this ridiculous pen with Andrew Miller and Cody Allen and Brian Shaw and Dan Otero, and then they had the best bullpen in baseball, and I think in 17, and I think the next year with basically the same players, it was bottom three, maybe even the worst in baseball. Now, there's things that just kind of can't be explained. With that said, I would argue this has kind of been worst case scenario for this pen. You've had no Jason Foley, who didn't even make the team, then got shoulder surgery, and would have been called up at some point if not getting injured. Bo Brisky, who was throwing fucking 100 towards the end of last season, who's completely fallen off. I wonder if there's an undisclosed injury that we don't know about there, because he was getting popped in AAA. Right. Yeah. Alex Lang's still a ghost, who at the and as I talked about with Petzold a few days ago, it still isn't throwing strikes. I mean, we're reaching a point with him where even if he comes back, like I don't see him earning his way into high leverage, even if he does get the call. He got
demoted before he got hurt.
Right. Exactly. And it's like, we know there's the swing and miss, high strikeout version of him that's in there, but he lost it, when he loses it, he loses it hard. So I guess I've been asked like what's happened, and obviously with Canely, the fall off as well. Is there something organizationally that you feel like they can point to as to why the bullpen maybe hasn't been as efficient as we expected them to be? Or do you simply think it's a matter of just bullpens as a whole being fragile and often quite unreliable?
You know what? Point blank, as blunt as I possibly can make it, I just don't think the pitchers are that good.
Yeah, I'm with you.
I really don't. I don't think it's rocket science, man. People, my least favorite overreaction to the bullpen struggles has been like pinning this on Fetter.
Right.
Have you seen the names that have gone through this pen this year? Like,
how dare he not fix Dietrich N?
Right, dude. Like, what? Yeah. Are we serious? The highest velo guy in the bullpen, well, it was Carlos Hernandez, who could not hit water if he fell out of a boat and can throw 100 in this pen and lasted 2 weeks. But like the hardest throwing guy is Will Vest, and he tops out at like 95, maybe 96. Like there is and they have guys coming up through the system that I like. They have proven that pitching development at the minor league level has been a strong suit. Pitching development at the major league level has been a strong suit. That doesn't mean that like I could walk into the clubhouse and be a sub-4 ERA pitcher. It is ultimately on the players. Like you still have to have the stuff and the talent to be a good major league reliever. You go through the list of names, dude, it is diabolical. Like genuinely, it is. And that's not even including the guys, again, that like aren't here in Hernandez and Kenta Maeda and whatnot, like Bailey Horn. I mean, even like this week, we've gone through like 3 different guys, Luke Jackson now, like he got kind of hosed by an umpire call, but like got smacked around there. Like it is a just revolving door. The only guys I trust in the bullpen right now are like Will Vest and Tyler Holton sometimes. Yeah. And like that's Tyler Holton. Oh, like what happened to him? They got 2 years of MVP caliber Tyler Holton as a waiver claim, dude. Right. That you can't expect that for 15 years. Like the fact that they got what they got out of him is nothing short of a miracle. Tommy Canely has been inconsistent the last 2 years, and his changeup just sucks now. I don't know. He's pushing like 40. That's not something that like this team can like fix. Yeah. I really do think that it's just simply look at the names. It's not good. It's a dumpster fire of just castaways and waiver claims that makes up a bullpen. And that's really like, again, it's not if Jason Foley's healthy, if Bo Brisky was this team's literally best reliever down the stretch last season and you know, in the postseason, even against the Astros, like was the closer. You know, like if those two guys are still here and pitching well and healthy, then this bullpen looks a lot different. But I don't know, man. I really don't think this is like the organization, you know, is failing them in terms of development. That the organization did fail with this bullpen. The front office didn't give the bullpen any good pitchers outside of, you know, maybe a couple of names. I really think it's as easy as that. I love when people are like, oh, like you know, AJ, you know, left so and so in too long. Like he should have pulled. For who, dude? Yeah. It's the 6th inning, and you can't go to Will Vest in the 6th. I don't know what to tell you, or you can, and then again, you're just back in the same situation. You kick the can down the road for an inning. Like, yeah. It's a problem. It's a really, really big problem, and is something that if they do not address at the deadline, will cost them in October.
Yeah, or you'll find yourself in a situation where you're using Canely in the 8th, and you want to groan and get upset, and then you look around the rest of the pen. It's like, well, unless you put Invest in this situation, he is by default probably your most experienced, best option at this point. I think, you know, one thing with Canely that was pointed out to me that I didn't think about, but just usage, you know, with his next outing, it'll be the most innings he's pitched since 2019. And it's barely over. It'll be like 43. You know, he's had the benefit over the last few years. I mean, even a year ago, as good as he was in New York, ERA of 2.11, FIP over 4. I mean, I think that it's kind of just water finding its level to a certain extent with him. I agree with you on pretty much everything you said. And even I think we're in agreement on this, but I really think the fall off of Bo Brisky is the one like really kind of big
for sure. Yeah.
Here because he was the real deal towards the end of last year. I also think to a certain extent we were spoiled by the magic that was the latter part of last season, in which for whatever reason by baseball standards, these nobodies in the pen were putting up zeros every single frame. I mean, Hannafy and Gunther, not even a ton of swing and miss, right? Like Herder, these guys just coming up, pitching scoreless frames, you turn it over to the next guy. That wasn't sustainable, but even knowing that, there has been a really significant fall off. I know with the news of, a lot of news broke on Monday with Reese Olsson being out, and I'll ask about him. But obviously the first piece of news that broke is Tigers acquire Chris Paddock, right? Who's going to be available for whatever it is, 7-8 starts here down the stretch as he is in a contract year. And I was taking a deeper dive into his numbers this season, and the numbers aren't good. I mean, just straight up, 111 innings, only 83 strikeouts, 4.95 ERA, was pretty solid to serviceable through the first 13 starts of the season, at least into June, had a 3.53 ERA. He's been a mess over his last 2 months. That includes the rough start that he had on Sunday night against the Tigers at the end of June. But you look at the Baseball Savant page, there are some things that stand out. Chase rate in the 86th percentile, which is interesting because the strikeout rate isn't good, but the chase rate is. Walk rate is in the 87th percentile. He does throw a lot of strikes. Extension is 92nd percentile. Those are pretty much the only numbers for people who read Baseball Savant. The only numbers that are really in the red. I originally viewed this for the better part of an hour as, he's going to be their 5th starter. Obviously, with Olson going out, there's now an adjustment going forward. You know, Fetter has had a pretty good track record of success with some of the pieces they've been able to turn around and get good baseball out of. Do you think that Paddock will fall into that category, or do you just not see it given the numbers and given his recent history?
Yeah, I don't know. I probably fall somewhere in between, not to like sit on a fence, but it's one of those things where I don't expect much out of him, but I also think that they got him because he's cheap and fits the profile that the team likes to use, right? Like they like guys with low walk rates and high extensions and have, stuff that they think that they can work with, and he fits all of those bills. Like this is a guy that when he was a rookie, like least we forget, he was very highly regarded and people thought he was going to be really, really good. And that just hasn't been the case. A lot of injury problems in his career as well. I think that really, like, everyone, and I've said this a few times already, but like everybody wants to have such a strong reaction to every trade. This doesn't do anything for me, man. This does not, bringing in Chris Paddock does not make me I'm like, oh, like I wanted them to trade for a starter. Well, check, good. They got a starter. Like, no, that's not my bar. My bar is not 5 ERA Chris Paddock, but it's also not a terrible deal of terrible value.
Mhm.
Like, Enrique Jimenez is a fine prospect. I'm not losing sleep over like the value part of it. And they needed a starter. Like, objectively, they needed a guy. And if he can go out there and keep the opposing team to 4 fewer runs in 6 innings, then that's great, and that he'll be a 5th rotation guy on this team, and that's kind of what I'm expecting. So I don't know. This is just like a huge like non-needle mover to me. It doesn't make me think any differently about what I want the team to acquire. If it's the 5th trade we make, if it's the, if you were to rank all the trades the Tigers make at the deadline and you're like, oh, like, and then remember they got Chris Paddock too, then I think it's a great trade. Mm-hmm. And you added starting pitching depth. You got a guy that's not named Cater Montero that can start every 5th day. Like you addressed a need. In the same breath, if this is 1 or 2 deals that happen at the deadline, then this is an atrocity and a laughingstock, and I would rather you just didn't do it at all.
Yeah, and I think that it's natural to see kind of the overreaction city on social media, and it's just like one of those things where I'm not going to assess the trade until I've assessed the entire deadline. Like you said, I mean, if we come away from this with just Chris Paddock, and regardless of how he pitches, I think it's pretty much a disaster. I think that more so, it's one of those trades that says more about where the organization is at as opposed to where the player is at. I don't know if they necessarily view Chris Paddock as this overwhelming asset, but I think that, it sucks to say this, but I just think it's the truth. They need bodies, and they need some kind of established bodies at this point. I think that with SGL not coming along post Tommy John the way that I think they want him to, with Montero really lacking an out pitch, you at least feel like, and because you go back to, the young version of Chris Paddock, there is a really good pitcher in there somewhere that you can maybe salvage for several starts down the stretch. But I view it as more of a depth piece than anything else. We've been kind of skirting around it, but I guess we'll jump into it. The deadline obviously is here, and it's really, I mean, they've had good seasons, but this is the first time since 2014 in which they've been legit buyers. Now, to what extent, we'll see. I think it's very interesting because I've had this theory for a while that I think trade deadlines are much, much, much different across the board, all across Major League Baseball than they were during our heyday under Dombrowski. I think that prospects are more valued than they've ever been. I think that if Dombrowski was here, one of the pieces, maybe more, of McGonigal, Briseño, or Clark would be on the move at this deadline. Yeah, that's just the way that they operate. Right now, those guys are viewed as untouchables. We know what this team needs more than anything. It's bullpen depth. You hear the whispers about Suarez. You hear the whispers about position players. If it could be up to you with this team being where they are right now and also taking into account what the future may look like, what would be the ideal deadline for Scott Bentley in the coming days? Yeah,
I mean, to be honest with you, this might be a pipe dream. But my ideal deadline is at least 2 relievers that can get some fucking swing and miss for the love of everything.
Yeah.
Another starting pitcher, because Chris Paddock doesn't do it for me, doesn't check off that box of getting a starter. And a bat. Now that's 4 players minimum.
Yeah.
And I also would add the stipulation of I don't love the idea, unless you're getting somebody with multiple years of control, of trading any of Clark, Briseño. I mean, I wouldn't trade Rayner. I know he's hurt.
And I don't think they will. Yeah.
I wouldn't move him either. Did I say Clark, McGonigal, Briseño, Rayner? Those. I mean, that's my perfect dream scenarios. You get 4 of those players and don't move any of those 4 that I just named. Now, how feasible is that? That's a tight window. Okay, that's a really. That's a tight fit in terms of, what is possible to do at a deadline. I think, and I know that you've said something similar to this too, where like the rotation, hopefully Melton can stick. Paddock, you get another arm back there. You hope that Flaherty can improve, right? Like Mize had a great first half, and then obviously Skubal, you probably could make it the end of the year without another starter. The offense, for as bad as it was for a couple weeks there, still has been really solid throughout the course of the season. If you want to hold your breath and hope that we don't have a spot for anybody like glaring need offensively, again, I'd like a bat, but like I probably wouldn't be super mad if they didn't get a bat.
Mm-hmm.
The bullpen is not either of those things, and you absolutely, it is inexcusable to not add at least one, and even then, I'd probably be upset if it was truly just one reliever at the deadline. This bullpen is an atrocity, dude. It is a complete disaster, and so I think, yeah, my perfect deadline would be, like I said, 2 relievers, another starter, and a bat. But at a minimum, you got to give me bullpen help and multiple relievers of bullpen help on top of that. If they're asking for, Briseño or Clark or whatever for Eugenio Suarez, then guess what? Eugenio Suarez isn't going to be a Tiger, and I'm honestly okay with that. It's half a year of Eugenio Suarez I'm not willing to mortgage any of those 4 players for half a year of Eugenio Suarez in his mid-30s, even for as well as he's been. Yeah. I just because I want them to buy doesn't mean I want them to completely empty the farm. And like, I feel like everything's so extreme these days. It drives me nuts. Like that, I want them to buy. I don't want them to completely sell off every single prospect they have for rentals just to be, give yourself a shot just this year. Like there is a sustainability that is needed. But that's kind of what I'm hoping for. And if it's quiet, then I think every fan has the right to be super upset.
I would agree. And it's funny. You bring up the extremes, and that's why it's fun to be buyers, but obsessive trade talk does drive me nuts. And it's like, I saw this coming when, like, how this started was Jeff Passan was like, man, if the Pirates aren't going to like try to be competitive, they might as well trade Paul Skeens. And then just on a whim, he's like, there's probably like 3 or 4 teams that could do it. Like the Tigers could probably do it. And then people are like, here's what they need to give up. It's Clark, it's McGonigal, it's Briseño. Go get Paul Skeens. And the Pirates had to be like, he's not fucking available. Sorry, guys. Like this was never a thing. Like this was never a publicized, like, oh, it's on the table type of thing. And, I get it. Like, it's fun. You make those big moves at the deadline, you upgrade. I mean, I remember exactly where I was when we found out that we got, David Price. It's awesome. Same. I also think things have changed. And I going back to the offense for a second, I really do believe, now Parker's a bit different because he got put on the IL again. I think the Tigers have this belief, 1, Riley's not going to do this forever and does get hot again at some point. And 2, that there is, and we've seen it a little bit in the last week, still some good baseball in Matt Vierling that we can see down the stretch here that could probably supplement for some guys who are starting to take steps back. Like we're not going to get the same version of McKinstry. We already haven't gotten the same version of Javi. It's the bullpen is a prime example of this is a unit that is not going to fix itself at this point, and you got to make moves. No, we've mentioned them a million times already now, but I mean, it's interesting because when we talk about Clark, Briseño, and McGonigal, we talk about them in the same vein that we talked about Torque and Greene, in the sense that we almost view them as this package deal, that they're going to come up together, they're going to succeed together, they're going to fail together. And often when it comes to minor league or even major league development, there are differences. Like I think that Greene, when he was called up, was probably we saw this based on the performance, quite a bit more seasoned than Torkelson was when he made the team in opening day in 22. So I think that there's this idea that they're all going to get called up together. And in an ideal world, I think that happens, but we'll see. Where it stands right now with all of them spending what will presumably be the remainder of the year in Double-A, what would you say the estimated time of arrival is for these 3 pieces? And do you think that we see them all get called up roughly around the same time?
So honestly, there's one of them that throws a wrench in all of them getting called up at the same time, and that's Kevin McGonigal.
Yes.
I genuinely think that we are going to be, and I'm sure we'll talk plenty from now until spring training of next year. I genuinely think if you and I sit down and talk next March, that there is going to be legitimate conversations in not only amongst the fan base but among the media and the organization about like, is Kevin McGonigal going to make this team out of camp? Like, I really think that as soon as next spring training, those are going to start. He is maybe the greatest hitter I've ever seen. And like, that's obviously like a joke, but
no, he's the best position player, young prospect of our lifetime with the Tigers. And I by a pretty wide margin.
Yeah. Like not even really particularly close. This guy has the ceiling of being like legitimately one of the best hitters in all of baseball. And so I think Clark probably still has more to prove. Like, I don't think Clark is going to be ready by spring training of next year. I don't think that Briseño is going to be major league ready by opening day of next year. Now, does that mean that if there's injuries or whatever happens next season and they're tearing it up in AAA, in July, that they can't get a look at like a September situation? No, absolutely. But I think, to be honest with you, I think Briseño and Clark are probably not 2026, but more 2027 pieces. And I think McGonigal could be more of a 2027 piece for sure. But I really do think that those conversations start as soon as spring training of 2026.
I think you're right. And part of that is just fan anticipation. I mean, like we wanted Mize and those guys to get called up when they were like 2 starts into AA. At the same time,
right? Like the Mize thing, like that, those teams were fucking atrocious, dude. Right. Like Casey Mize or Michael Pineda, like you know, like
Ryan Carpenter. Yeah,
right. Oh my, is that the worst pitcher you've ever seen?
I would say he's the most noticeable. This is not major league stuff that I've ever seen. I think in the time that and it's funny because that's a deep cut of the Tank era. But anyone you bring up is like,
dude. Yeah, that's like my bar for like this, and like no more talent in his right toe than I have in my whole body. Like no disrespect, but it just watching a team lose 114 games and also throw out a dude with an 8 ERA just was an absolute gut punch every time he was on the mound.
Yeah.
But yes, I think that it has to do with the need as well because McGonigal is, do you have a guaranteed third baseman next year? No, you just don't. And like, he's mostly played shortstop. Heck, if he's good enough defensively, Javi, have fun at third. McGonigal's going to be playing short. Like, and there's a whole bunch of nuance with that conversation. And most of it honestly falls on Javi's shoulders. But I think that is why it's like, okay, not only it's very similar, not from a defensive perspective or like how good the player is, but it's very similar to how I felt when Castellanos was trying to break the team. It's like, okay, they have a blatant hole at this one position and the rest of the team is really good and has proven that. Well, then let's just call them up and see what happens. And I think that that's probably going to be the conversation next year if they don't get, a Bregman or like spend a ton of money on somebody that can play third, short, or second next year. Glaber's going to walk. Colt Keith presumably then goes back to second.
Yeah.
Spencer Torkelson's probably going to be at first. Like, you're going to have a hole there. Why not fill it with arguably the best prospect in baseball? I think it just kind of makes sense.
The difference is, and I'm smiling just because the difference is they literally made up a position for Castellanos. At that time, it's like, okay, we need a third baseman. It's like, yeah, but you're not a third baseman. Well, you are now. Like it was they just found, and then
super fair.
It's like McGonigal, and I think that's, and I'm not even meaning this in a demeaning way. I think probably the quote unquote weakest element of his game is probably going to be his defense and his range. It's not even, I think he'll be more fundamental than bad.
That's because his offense is legitimately one of the better hitting prospects we've ever seen. So
he's going to have potentially an 80 grade hit tool. I also think it's where, and you mentioned a little bit, positional need really factors in because, and I know that we go back and forth with Parker Meadows and he's kind of, with the injuries and the inconsistency, but they're going to continue to give him reps and give him a shot. And so they should. And so you look at the outfield for next season, Greene not going anywhere, Carey presumably not going anywhere, Wenzel can play outfield, Matty V can play outfield. It's going to be kind of crowded for somebody like a Max Clark. You look at Briseño, they like their catching platoon. It's worked out. Dingler's been awesome this year. But if go right now and, subject to change, you're probably going into 26 asking the question, what's a better option? A Trey Sweeney, Javi Baez platoon, or giving Kevin McGonigal a shot at either third or short. Right. And I think that assuming McGonigal continues to ascend, I think the answer to that might be that you give McGonigal a chance. Rough news yesterday Monday with Reese Olsson being put on the injured list for the remainder of the season. And, this is, I think it's kind of time with him. And I wanted to ask you about this, to have something of a difficult conversation, because you looked at Reese. He's going to be 26 next year. Excellent pitcher, right? The numbers are good. 3.60 career ERA. I would argue the numbers are probably even a little bit better than that. He had a few starts coming off of injury last year where his ERA ended up getting inflated. Good swing and miss, solid peripherals, tremendous slider, changeups come along. But this is now the second year in a row in which he's missed significant time with injury. And it's not, bad luck, Matt Manning getting hit in the foot by line drives. We're talking, pretty upper body stuff, shoulder issues. I guess I'm not on board with, give up on him, because that's insane. Ultimately, the guy's stuff is too good. But I also think a huge problem that not just plagues the Tigers, but plagues a lot of organizations in baseball is that they often don't see the value in availability for whatever reason. Like, you have an organization like the Dodgers that just, I'm not going to say they don't care, but they seem to be more than comfortable with every pitcher in their organizations, spending a high percentage of time on the injured list and just kind of building with their, with the bullpen that they have. I think with Reese being where he's at, what do you see the future being for him in this organization? Do you think they just run it back with the hopes of maybe we can get a 25-30 start season from Reese Olsson somewhere? Or do you think there could be serious consideration, given the fact that he's still very young, given the fact that he has a track record, that he could be somebody that maybe you dish to acquire a bat at some point in the future?
Yeah, I first off, in terms of like the trade market thing, like times change so quickly. You're right. Like, you know what I mean? Like, people love to do the like, oh, what's the lineup going to look like in like two? It's like, dude, there's 0% chance that this happens. Like, that, who knows what the Tigers team needs are going to be, this winter, nonetheless, a year or two down the road. So if they ever get to a point where they have a surplus of pitching and the offense maybe falls off, then obviously they'd consider that. But I really think that this is a run it back and hope for better results scenario. Like, he is still so young. What'd you say, 25 years old?
Yeah.
Like, he is so young and so talented. Like, he had a sub-3 ERA for almost this entire year. Like, he's been so phenomenal, and there is injury concern. Don't get me wrong. Like, he's had a legitimate, like, missed amount of time in every single one of his seasons so far. That is a problem. I'm not trying to like gloss over that or just be like, oh, it'll just fix itself or whatever. But the best value in terms of, all the possible outcomes, whether you put him in the bullpen and like give up on him being a starter, or you do trade him, whatever, the most value, the path that gives you the most value for Reese Olsson is for him to be a healthy starting pitcher. And so ultimately that is the avenue that you have to keep trying, and you have to continue going down, because this isn't like, I know we love to look at things just in the lens of the Tigers, but you mentioned it there. This is not just a Tiger-centric issue. The Dodgers had like the greatest rotation I've ever seen on opening day, and by June 1st, all of them were hurt. Like, this is an issue that is plaguing baseball. We're trying to figure out how to balance velocity, because it's objectively better to throw hard, and you get better results when you throw hard, and health, because it's also objectively, there's a direct correlation between arm health and velo thrown. So I think that they have to keep running it back, and I don't blame them for doing so, because ultimately that's where he's going to bring the team the most value.
Yeah, and I think they will. I don't think, unless something really crazy happens, that they're going to even really entertain it, because they do still like him. And ultimately, even though I think we're kind of too far removed to really be, doing this victory lap, like, you got him for Daniel Norris. Like whatever you get from Reese at this point, it's like it kind of is gravy, though I think that's kind of a bizarre way of looking at it. And of course, you can never have enough pitching. And that brings me to my last question, which is maybe more of a somber note to end things on. But one of the few predictions I got right about this season was that I came in saying, I don't know if we've seen the best version of Tarik Skubal. And I was right, because the year we've gotten from him this year, that's the best version of Tarik Skubal. He is currently having, quite frankly, just in terms of where he stands with his numbers compared to the rest of the league, one of the most completely dominant seasons we've seen by a starting pitcher in recent memory. And it is so much fun. And every fifth day feels like an event, and it's amazing. And he's given us some unbelievable memories. But with each dominant start, the dollar signs go up, and the possibility of this team not retaining him long term becomes more and more likely. Pending something crazy like, and you don't want it, but like an injury or something bizarre, or he just has an off year next year, something strange like that. Assuming that we continue to get some Cy Young level version of Tarik Skubal, meaning that the asking price will probably begin around $400 million. Do you see a future in which he finishes his career as a Detroit Tiger, or is it starting to reach that point of just enjoy what you got until it's gone?
Yeah, this is like the most depressing ending ever. I don't see it, man. I hope I'm wrong. I pray every single day that I'm wrong. I start my mornings off by thinking, wow, a year and a half, hope that turns into 10 years. I think about it before I go to bed every night. I am a psychopath, but I think I'm right. Like I don't see it. I don't think that, and that's not to say that the Tigers won't make an offer. They obviously will. Correct. They would be ridiculous just be like, all right, like no chance. They will give him some sort of offer. I just don't think they're ever going to meet the ridiculously high asking price of, because Boris is going to go, if you don't want us to go to free agency, you got to even overpay the already high price tag, because we want to go to free agency and drive up this price. So they're not going to do that. So he's not going to get extended before he reaches free agency in my eyes. I would be stunned, like legitimately. And that's not even like he won't come back to Detroit. I haven't even gotten that far yet. I would be jaw on the floor, baffled. I would be beside myself if the Tigers extended him before free agency.
Yes.
Now, we get to the fact that he is in free agency. Obviously, the Tigers will be players in that, and they'll try to work the market and get him for as cheap as possible, I say in quotes. Right. But I just don't think that they are going to be... This is going to piss people off. I think that it's a value thing for them. I don't think that this team is going to be, and I disagree with this. Don't shoot the messenger, but I because that's everyone's favorite thing. All I'm saying is I don't think from where I sit that this front office is a really big fan of paying a player that plays once every 5 days, $400 million and has, whether you hate it or not, a large injury risk. He's had one full season of Major League Baseball that's been uninterrupted by injuries. Hopefully this year is the second. So I just don't think that the Tigers are going to be willing to put their money where their mouth is in terms of, $400+ million for a guy that has all those things. Now, again, I disagree with that. And I think the best PR move that Ilitch could ever make in his life is extending Tarik Skubal. I think it immediately gets all the fans off of his jock about like not being willing to spend a big contract. I think it immediately, just for team building sake, right? Like you have an ace, a World Series caliber ace for the next however many years you sign him for. But on top of that, you sell out the park every single time he pitches for a reason, dude. Yep. Like he is an event. He is Verlander status in terms of, and I'm not comparing them as pitchers, but he is that status of like hey, it's Verlander Day, let's go get tickets. Hey, it's Skubal Day, let's go get tickets. So I think it's the best PR decision that this ownership group could literally ever make, and I don't think they're going to do it.
I agree. Yes, I think it sucks to say it sucks to think about. Here's what I ultimately, the way I assess the situation, because a lot of this stuff I think started really kind of several years back. Him being a Boris client changes so much of this, and I know I hammer that home, but like he's the most consistent agent in sports when it comes to this stuff, and not forcing, but waiting for these guys to hit free agency. And as long as guys get paid similar to what Juan Soto got in this most recent offseason, like he's going to continue to have high profile clients. I don't know what went on behind closed doors necessarily. I think that what would have been the biggest home run move of all, and maybe this was discussed, would have been to try to get some kind of Jacob deGrom-esque extension after the 2023 season. Because I think that it was pretty obvious at that point, this guy's special. And even with the question marks at the time of, hasn't had a full season, I feel like you could have offered him something that in hindsight would have become like what it was with deGrom.
For sure.
One of the more team-friendly contracts in sports. And that was right around when they gave Colt Keith the deal before he'd even played a major league game. So you started to wonder if this was going to be, if they were going to kind of try to abide by that Braves model of locking people down for their prime years. Now, he has obviously gone off into the stratosphere and been the best pitcher in the world. Here's, I guess, I'm not going to say the best that I can hope for. The best I can hope for is that he stays here. But we have seen this happen with certain teams. We saw it happen with the Nationals in 2018 after they lost Harper. We saw it happen to the Yankees this most recent season after they lost Juan Soto. There will be a significant loss that comes with losing Tarik Skubal if it happens. The biggest punch in the gut will be if you don't use that money that you would have paid Tarik Skubal with on other pieces. Because people always talk about, the Nationals lost Bryce Harper. They won the World Series the next year. Well, that's because the money that Harper didn't take from them, they used to go out and get some, Kendrick and Corbin and some of these key pieces that helped them win it all the next season. If you feel like it's not a viable option for you to spend $400 plus on Tarik Skubal, look, we can kibitz about it, but it's ultimately it's their decision. They're the front office. What I need you doing is still showing initiative and spending that money elsewhere to make sure that the core that you have can continue to succeed. If you do that, then there will be life beyond Tarik Skubal, as weird as it sounds. But, obviously,
right.
The simplest solution is just you retain him. Look, man, or go
really
ahead.
Really quick.
Yeah, no, go, of course.
My biggest, not like opinion on the matter, but the thing that would drive me nuts the most is if Tarik walks, and they do not maximize this year and a half left window. That is the ultimate. I've said this on my show. I've said it on other shows. That is the ultimate form of hypocrisy. You cannot not pay him what he's very much worth, and also not buy at the deadline and not spend some money on, free agents this winter to try to win a World Series next year. That is blasphemy. You cannot do that. You have to either extend him or buy relatively heavily. And perfect world, you do both of those things.
Yeah.
But like you cannot just sit around and go, well, he's going to walk and we're not going to, to your point, and we're not going to spend money on other pieces, or we're not going to make trades for other people. Like we're just going to sit here and wait, and we're just going to have this year and a half window left of the best pitcher in baseball. And, when he leaves, we'll just carry on business as usual. You have to draw a line in the sand. It sounds super like black and white and blunt, but that's how, in my brain, that's how I view it. Like you have to do one of those things, because if you're not going to do either, then the internet trolls are right, and you should just trade them. Like, for real. You should just be like, we clearly don't care about this window whatsoever, so let's build for the window we actually do care about.
Yeah. With you completely. Look, you've always been a smart guy. You've grown up a lot, man. And it's not to say that you were ever lacking in maturity any more than any one of us was.
Oh,
I mean,
you met me when I was.
yeah. I mean, the last person who can speak on maturity is probably me. But I'm
you met
really
me when I was, when both of us were at interesting points in our lives. Yeah.
But I continue to be immensely proud of you. But even beyond that, I mean, you make good shit, dude. And I love talking to you over time. We will have you on again. You are now. I'm trying to come up with tier lists for guests. So now that this is your second appearance, you are on like the short list of like, I think once you get to 3, you're a Hall of Fame guest. At 2, you're an all-star guest. So you're there with Tarik and AJ and Jay Hen.
People that I'm obviously on the same tier as those guys.
Got 4 guys that are roughly going to be making the same amount here. At some point
right, absolutely,
But dude, we'll make sure to promote your stuff, man, and we'll have you on in the future. But always great catching up with you, buddy.
Appreciate you, buddy. Love you.
Yep, it's awesome. Yeah, I mean, I meant it at the end, like he's always been really sharp with the Tigers, but it's good. It's cool. That's one of the cool things about the internet and getting to know people on the internet is you. So much of this stuff is logged for better or worse. And you get to see people grow up, man. I mean, he's been super sharp. He's always been good to me. I mean, we've always had a good relationship, but good kind of picking his brain apart. And, we're in agreement about a lot of stuff. So I highly recommend people listen to Lockdown Tigers and listen to what he does. It's a really good network over there that I had the pleasure of being a part of for a while. So make sure to give him a follow. The guy does a tremendous job, and it was great catching up. A lot of clips that we're going to be able to cut from this interview, which is always fun. So yeah, that will do it for today's episode. At Castellani 2014 on Twitter. We're on YouTube. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. We're available in audio form on Apple Podcasts, available in audio form on Spotify, and CastellaniContent.com is getting updated every single day with content that Austin and I are creating. Numbers for I'll Say This have been doing better lately. TikTok's been doing better lately. Obviously, it's a good time of year for us, and a big reason for that is the artist behind the lens. Austin Sisler continues to do a marvelous job as my producer. Feel very fortunate to have him just in my life as a human being and doing the work that he's doing for us. We've really learned to grind over this last year, and it's going to continue. So it's definitely been a lot of fun to grow and mature with this audience, and I appreciate all your support, and I know Austin does as well. We will be back with more content in the coming weeks, whether it's I'll Say This, Chris and Company, what have you. Keep an eye out. I will talk to you all again real soon. Have a great rest of your day. Peace and happiness.
We're all